How can the Libertarian Party call itself the party that's anti-war, both at home and abroad, when you guys as a party oppose any form of gun control? How many people need to die in a Walmart or a school before you guys change your minds?
Oh, lady.
Yeah.
Hold on. Let me, listen, you know what? She had some courage in that one, so I'm not going to... All right. Listen, I will absolutely support all of us turning over all of our guns to the government as soon as we run a background check on the government and make sure that they're not a threat to kill people with those guns, okay? So I want to be very careful. You know, I believe in background checks, so as soon as I'm sure that they're not going to, like genocide 250 million people in the 20th century, we'll let the government have a monopoly on guns.
Are you for gun control?
Yeah.
Who should control the guns?
Who should control the guns? Probably the government.
Do you trust the government?
No.
You don't trust the government, but you want them to control the guns?
Gun control laws are violence. Contrary to some beliefs, gun control laws do not decrease violence. Gun control laws are actually themselves threats of violence made against peaceful people who have not been suspected of threatening others or violating the rights of others. When people fail to comply with new gun control laws, the government sends in men who themselves have guns to threaten the gun owner with deadly force. This threat is a lethal threat, one that will be carried out with the death sentence, should a person resist the government's violence. So when people say they are for gun control, they are not really for getting rid of and restricting guns. Rather, they are for giving government goons a monopoly on guns and leaving the public helpless against aggression, whether from a mugger, a rapist, or even the government itself. And don't be fooled by propaganda suggesting that gun bans lead to less violence, as anti-gun advocates routinely frame their studies in a manner to deceive. Most often, by including suicide as a part of the gun violence, by failing to discount for murder rates in cities where guns are virtually banned already, by ignoring violent crime downtrends that begun before gun control legislation, by leaving out the fact that crimes by other instrumentality escalate when guns are banned, and by ignoring the plights in developed countries like Mexico, where guns are banned yet murder rates are still high. Remember, the government and criminals will not give up their guns. Neither should you. Defend yourself. Don't become another victim.
Yes, freeze. It's like, because if you have a fundamental principle that is wrong and you build your house on it, that's why you see this constant cognitive dissonance of the left, especially because, Trump is Hitler, but give him your guns. And you see.
Hey, Larken Rose here, and this is a message for anybody who supports gun control. In this video, I'm not even going to try to talk you out of your position. I'm just going to ask that you be literally accurate and specific and honest about what it is that you advocate. Now, this is something that comes up with statists all the time, is they will use euphemisms and vague terms that make it sound good while not actually saying what it is they condone. Now, I actually shock and offend some people by being literal and specific about what I condone. Some people out there talk about the Second Amendment as a ultimate guard against tyranny, but they don't really want to get any more specific. I all the way get specific and say, the people, if they have the ability to kill government agents, it limits what the government can do to them. That's just the reality of it. And I don't hide it under euphemisms and mushy things to try to make it sound vague and to make it sound more pleasant. You know, the idea of killing anybody, justified or not, is not a pleasant topic. But be honest about what you advocate. And those who advocate gun control are almost never honest about what they advocate. So what I'm going to ask of you in this video isn't even to change your mind, it's just to say out loud what it is you actually advocate. For example, if you advocate a ban on semi-automatic rifles, if you advocate that all semi-automatic rifles, like the one used in the Connecticut shooting, be outlawed, and by the way, here's one of them. I own one. This is an AR-15. Semi-automatic. It's not a machine gun, for those of you who know nothing about guns. This is a very similar model to what was allegedly used in the Connecticut shooting. It's a different manufacturer. This is Colt, not Bushmaster. Slightly different model, but same general thing, semi-automatic rifle. Now, if you're saying you want to ban them, what does that mean? I mean, I hear some people out there talking about, well, we just need reasonable gun policies. And, well, what does that mean? Well, how vague can you possibly get? Get specific. Well, some people are at least specific enough to say, let's ban semi-automatic rifles. Okay, well, get even more specific. What does that mean? It means you're going to tell several million Americans who already own things just like this, and there are several million who do, that they're either going to hand it over to the government, who has lots and lots of these, they're either going to surrender their guns, or lots of government agents with guns are going to go take their guns and take them away and put them in a cage. That's what banning it would actually mean. It doesn't magically make them disappear any more than drug prohibition made drugs disappear. All it was is, let's go threaten to cage a lot of people if we catch them smoking marijuana or whatever. Same thing with gun control laws. The people who advocate them rarely specifically and literally describe what it is they advocate, which is sending men with guns after all those people out there who own something like this, threatening violence against somebody for owning one of these, not for threatening anybody. I mean, this one lives in a safe. It's never been used in a crime. It's never been used to threaten anybody. And the same is true of millions of other semi-automatic rifles owned by Americans across the country. And if you support a ban, what you're supporting is that government agents go threaten all those people and say, hand over your guns, or we're going to come take them by force. And we're going to take you by force and put you in a cage for breaking the law. Now, as you may already know, and I'll tell you if you didn't already know, there are lots and lots of gun owners, and I'm one of them, who, I don't care what law you pass, I will not surrender my ability to defend my family. If you ban semi-automatic, I'm not giving this up. If you pass a law that says I can't have this, I'm going to keep this. And if you support guys coming to my house to violently take it from me and to cage me because I didn't give it up, think of what that's actually saying about you. You know, if you're imagining that you're nonviolent and you're peaceful and you're anti-gun, and then you're advocating that millions of people who haven't hurt anybody and haven't threatened anybody be threatened with violence by men with guns if they own one of these, what you're actually saying, ultimately, on a practical level, what you're saying is, you would rather have all those people killed than let them keep their firearms. Even if they've been perfectly responsible, which the vast majority of them have, even if they're perfectly responsible, never threatened anyone, never hurt anybody, you're saying, if you want a semi-automatic rifle ban, that you would rather have them killed than let them keep their guns. Because there's a lot of people out there, I'm one of them, who will not disarm, even if the government says, you're not allowed to have guns anymore. I don't care. I don't need their permission to defend myself and my family. It's an inherent right. And so if you're supporting one of these bans, what you're saying is, yeah, I want you, Mr. Federal Government, I want you to threaten violence against those millions of people if they don't give up their guns. That's not peaceful, and that's not civilized. But for now, like I said, I'm not even asking in this video for you to change your mind. I just want you to tell the truth about what you advocate. Be literal, be specific, be honest. Say out loud, I would rather all those people be killed than let them keep their firearms. If you would rather me be killed than let me keep this, have the guts to say it. Say it out loud, say it specifically, say it honestly. Because if your belief system is such that you don't even dare to specifically, honestly express what it is that you personally advocate, then your belief system sucks.
If you are for gun control, then you are not against guns, because the guns will be needed to disarm the people. So it's not that you are anti-gun, you'll need the police's guns to take away other people's guns. So you are very pro-gun. You just believe that only the government, which is of course so reliable, honest, moral and virtuous, should be allowed to have guns. There is no such thing as gun control. there is only centralizing gun ownership in the hands of a small political elite and their minions.
Human beings only have two ways to deal with one another: reason and force. If you want me to do something for you, you have a choice of either convincing me via argument or force me to do your bidding under threat of force. Every human interaction falls into one of these two categories without exception: reason or force. That's it. In a truly moral and civilized society, people exclusively interact through persuasion. Force has no place as a valid method of social interaction, and the only thing that removes force from the menu is the personal firearm, as paradoxical as it may sound to some. When I carry a gun, you cannot deal with me by force. You have to use reason and try to persuade me, because I have a way to negate your threat or employment of force. The gun is the only personal weapon that puts a 100-pound woman on equal footing with a 220-pound mugger, a 75-year-old retiree on equal footing with a 19-year-old gangbanger, and a single guy on equal footing with a carload of drunk guys with baseball bats. The gun removes the disparity in physical strength, size, or numbers between a potential attacker and a defender. There are plenty of people who consider the gun as the source of bad force equations. There are the people who think that we'd be more civilized if all guns were removed from society, because a firearm makes it easier for an armed mugger to do his job. That, of course, is only true if the mugger's potential victims are mostly disarmed, either by choice or by legislative fiat. It has no validity when most of a mugger's potential marks are armed. People who argue for the banning of arms ask for automatic rule by the young, the strong, and the many, and that's the exact opposite of a civilized society. A mugger, even an armed one, can only make a successful living in a society where the state has granted him a force monopoly. Then there's the argument that the gun makes confrontations lethal that otherwise would only result in injury. This argument is fallacious in several ways. Without guns involved, confrontations are won by the physically superior party, inflicting overwhelming injury on the loser. People who think that fists, bats, sticks, or stones don't constitute lethal force watch too much TV, where people take beatings and come out of it with a bloody lip at worst. The fact that the gun makes lethal force easier works solely in favor of the weaker defender, not the strong attacker. If both are armed, the field is level. The gun is the only weapon that's as lethal in the hands of an octogenarian as it is in the hands of a weightlifter. It simply wouldn't work as well as a force equalizer if it wasn't both lethal and easily employable. When I carry a gun, I don't do so because I'm looking for a fight, but because I'm looking to be left alone. The gun at my side means that I cannot be forced, only persuaded. I don't carry it because I'm afraid, but because it enables me to be unafraid. It doesn't limit the actions of those who would interact with me through reason, only the actions of those who would do so by force. It removes force from the equation, and that's why carrying a gun is a civilized act. By Major L. Caudle, United States Marine Corps, retired.